Welcome back to the Armchair Coaching Podcast. I am your host, Coach Sheffer, and we have another great guest today. Today we have Coach Anthony Stone. Coach Stone is an author, and he is the quarterbacks and running backs coach at Boylan High School in Rockford, Illinois. Coach Stone, welcome onto the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem, Coach. So the first question that I have for you is one that I ask all of my podcast guests. I want to know your story because I'm weirdly fascinated by every coach's story. We all seem to have a different path to where we got today. So basically, can you take us on a journey here and tell us, how did you end up where you are today?
Okay, well, I was born in hometown Illinois in 1978. So you can probably figure out how old I am. Always loved to play sports when I was a little kid. It was phenomenal. Funny thing is, I played baseball first. I played baseball, and pretty much when I got to like middle school, I didn't like baseball anymore, and I wanted to play football. And my mom was like person like where if you got every time I tackled somebody or something like that, she'd be on the field, right? She was that type of mom. And my dad, he wasn't really one of those ones that coached from the fence, but he was one of those ones where he critiqued you after every game, and he would tell you like this and that. And so then after that all came about, what came to me with coaching is this. I went to college. I played college football at Ncaa school. I played in Division III. Then I transferred after my first year at the Ncaa school. Went to a Division III school. Had a great career playing quarterback. Had a great high school career too. Got all that, and then I started learning the game. And then during the off season, I would just study film, watch film. And the biggest thing you got to remember is when I went to college, we didn't have DVD players. We didn't have anything. We were still on VHS. And the greatest thing I noticed when I became a college coach is they invented the thing called DVDs, and just watching the film. And I would like open up the coaches would give me the office key at Loris where I was at. And I'd watch a ton of film, and I always write down notes and things like that. And I really got a passion for it. But I didn't get into coaching for the money, because if you're not coaching at a high level, Division I or NFL or higher, like any type of that type, you're not making the money that you put in the hours for. And I do it for the love of the game, and I do it because it's I don't know if you remember, Darrin, those MasterCard commercials when we were little. Like go buy a ticket for a baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
That was a New York Yankees one. Remember go see a Yankees game, priceless. I think that's why I love coaching, and doing everything where I'm at now is it's priceless when you see people succeed. And it's a true honor to see kids grow from, it's like molding like clay, because you're a teacher too. You can mold a kid a certain way, and then once you put it down, they can keep going on that path, or they can stray off left or right. Because I guarantee you, any coach that's listening to this, you put all that time and effort in molding that kid, and then somehow something happened, and either they quit, they lost something, got kicked off, or it all happens. And I think the biggest thing with coaching and where I'm at with Boylan is it's a great opportunity, and I truly believe that everyone that's listening to this, we coach for the love of the game, the passion, and at the end of the day, like I say, it's like a drug. So if I don't have it, it eats me up inside. And I did step away from the game, like we talked about earlier. And the only reason I was happy, I was actually happy. I wasn't doing nothing but teaching football at clinics and not coaching at all. And then I got back into the swing when Coach Cacciatore invited me to be on his staff 5 years ago. And I haven't looked back. And I get more and more opportunities to do more things for the high school. And I appreciate it. And I want to thank Coach Cacciatore for letting me do that. And that's pretty much my story in a all zigzag way.
That's awesome, Coach. And you said something about VHS when we're doing film. I was at Bridgewater College. My freshman year was, I don't want you to call me too young or anything, but I was a freshman in 2010, and I was quote redshirted because Bridgewater's a D3, and if you're a redshirt, you just kind of sit out and you're not allowed to practice or anything in D3. I had a bad injury my senior year, torn ACL, and a bunch of other stuff happened in my knee, but I was still recovering. And so what the head coach said was like, hey, I know that you signed up for the work study program, and so you can work for us, work for the team. And so I filmed practice, I filmed the games. They taught me how to do all of that, how to take care of the film. And even in 2010, I was still using these teeny tiny little tapes in the
Oh,
old school camera. They hadn't updated to the HD cameras yet. And so I had, after the end of practice, at the end of the game, they had this gigantic like conversion machine connected to a computer, and you'd have to place it in there, like rewind it and all that. And I learned all of that. And I had no idea at that time that I was eventually going to be a football coach.
oh my gosh.
And all that experience actually helped me out. So that what you were talking about, the VHS, reminded me of that. I don't know why.
It's like it's the old. I want to say don't hold me to it, right? And listeners or coaches might get mad, but it was a DSV or something before Huddle. Was the big program? I want to say it was.
I
There
think
was a
so, but
yeah,
I
where you
can't
had that,
remember.
like you had like it looked like a freaking. You'd go into the coach's office, right, or the film room, and it
Mhm.
was like a freaking like shelf unit of all electronics, and you had to hit all these buttons just to get it started or recorded. And I'm just like, holy cow, this is ridiculous. So
So we mentioned before the podcast that
sure,
you are an author and you have written a bunch of books. Actually, I
yes.
can go on your website right now, which, by the way, listeners, I'll put the link in the description on the podcast below. There's a bunch of books on there, Coach. And so you're very prolific with writing, and I'm envious because I wish I could have the time to write, but I just don't right now. But and you have one with you right now if you wanted to
Yes,
show it. Um,
it's
there it
the
is.
second book I ever wrote. It's a Bible almost. It's pretty big.
That is
The
a pretty
green one.
big, Coach. That is pretty big there, buddy.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay. Um, so you've written an entire series, and so your series is the Back to the Basics. Is there a story behind the name? Like, do you have
Uh,
a story behind that?
yeah. I mean, it's really not a big story and things like that. I mean, like people always ask, like, how did you write so many books and things like that. The reason why the word "back to the basics" was so and true with me is this: it represents being consistent by laying a foundation. You cannot put up a house on sand. You need layers of everything, right? And like as a teacher, it's important to be consistent so that the students or the athletes have a solid foundation to learn and grow from. This is the same as true as just like in coaching sports, right? And the green book that I just showed you, like it's like a Bible, right? And a lot of people like they'll buy my books or they'll be like, yeah, they're great books, and they'll buy volume 1 offense, they'll buy volume 2 defense, and they're like, this is a great book. But once you read the book, then all of a sudden, like if I say like someone buys like my volume 1 or volume 2 or volume 3 book, all of a sudden like my green book starts selling more. And that was the first book I showed you in 2000. I want to say 2008, 2007. It was, it's been so long. It's having 5 kids is tough, but the biggest thing I would say is this: the green book I just showed has offense, defense, special teams, tackling, and turnovers, the 5 components of a football. And I think it's very important to understand, like when I wrote the first book, I wrote it to be like 800 pages. But the problem was I was on Creative Space, and Creative Space is no longer because Kindle, Amazon, KP Amazon bought them out, right? Amazon bought out that small company. And they said, you can only make a 600-page book. Well, this book that there is 581, 82 pages, right? So I couldn't put all the stuff in the book because it was too big. And then they're like, you should sell for this much money or that much money. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to sell it at a cheap price and see what happens. And I was very ecstatic. And like any coach that's ever bought any of my books, one, I hope you like them, right? 2, if you bought them, please put a review on there, and I'll send you all the free content. Because that's the one thing I did was every time you buy a book from me, 90% of the books for Back to the Basics series, they have bonus content. So like for the green book, there's like the insertion schedules, with everything with the shapes and things, like talks about the hexagon. Volume 1 or volume 2 talks about with more. I mean, we talk about practice plans with the arch, so we have practice plan templates in the green one. So, and I have a video of my son doing the Coach Stone Back to the Basics stance, because, with little kids or any type of kid, when you say, put your feet shoulder width apart or show me like boom, boom, their feet are not here. They're out here when they first start. And you can't even see it on camera because they're so far out. So what I say is you put your feet together, you make a pyramid, and then you rock back, and then your shoulder width apart. So if you did that right now by listening, that's what it was. And going back to the basics is really vital, because you can do all these other things, but if you're not doing the basic stuff, you're not getting the job done. And you as a football coach know this. We all know how much a first down is. You know, you're a defensive coach. If they go 3 + 3 + 3, that's 9. It's 4th and 1, right? And I guarantee you, a team's not going to go for 4th and 1 on the 20-yard line every time if they're on their 20. You know what I mean? If they're in the red zone, they're going to go for it, possibly. Because how many high school teams have kickers they can kick the ball that far? You know, so just little things you do. And then, you know, I think with doing all those aspects of the offense, the defense, you know, and the special teams and tackling and turnovers, if you tackle well, you're going to be successful on defense. You know, and people say, well, with D-line, you should be sprinting them 20 yards, right? Well, if your defensive line is sprinting 20 yards, guess what? You're not that good of a team. I'm just, am I right or wrong by saying that?
Yeah, you're right.
You know, and, you know, when you're blocking with the offense, the greatest thing any O-line coach says is seeing those linemen downfield, seeing those big hosses that are like, and here's the thing, you know, maybe we can make tag Madden in this, because I'm eventually going to do this, right? Do you play Madden, Coach?
I'm more of an NCAA football guy.
All right, so you would love this. I just had on my podcast, and we can talk about it later. I just had Doug Flutie, Maximum Football, on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming out like in 2 weeks. But here's the thing that's funny. With Madden, they have this thing called Superstar KO, right? And you can pick NFL players, and they can play and everything, and you can pick all these different coaches. But the one position they don't have, offensive line. Why?
Yeah.
Why not? If it wasn't for the offensive line, you can't run the ball. You can't pass the ball. So, you know, just by little things like that and going back to the basics, you know, I think it's really important. And I think no matter what level you're at, youth, middle school, high school, or college, or the pros, it's sometimes really good to do, you know, and that's the whole precedence of why I did the book titles and doing the series. It's just like coaches have been asking for more. You know, I got 2 new books coming out shortly. One will be out by the end of the year. It's a Back to the Basics, Strength and Conditioning book with Cody Gazaza, one of my former players. You know, I recruited him out of high school, never played football, recruited him out of high school. And, you know, he's now a football coach in Tennessee, and he's a strength and conditioning coach, and he's doing very successful. He actually went to Australia with me. And I know that's one of the things we talked about that we're going to talk about. He actually went to Australia with me with the coaching accreditation program that I now currently am doing out there, you know, with my Back to the Basics series. So, but yeah, that's how the whole Back to the Basics came about and why I did it.
So what was the initial inspiration to start writing? Because that's a lot to take on there, Coach. So
yeah.
So did you have like an event or something happen that made you think, I really want to write a book? Like, I really want to put this information out there. Like, what was your inspiration to do that?
When your wife tells you to clean out the walk-in closet with all your football notes, that starts getting it. And then, you know, I know you're a young buck still, right? Where like old guys like us, we played when we didn't have helmets or whatever they say, right? And as a quarterback, listen, I'm telling you right now, there are some hits I've taken. I don't know how I survived, right? And I remember, I don't know if I ever told this in a podcast, but I remember getting my ankle just folded in half, like literally like a piece of paper. Like it literally went one way, the ankle this way, touched here, and then it touched there on the leg. And then I'm trying to stand on it. First major injury I ever had in college football, and it's just dangling when they carried me off. But what happened is, one, I'm getting older, right? And I'm not saying I'm only 42, and I know I'm saying I'm super old, right? And everyone's gonna be like, oh, he's not that old. But like my body's like 60, it feels like some days, you know, when you wake up. I mean, I don't know if you do this, but when I go work out or when I go do something, it takes me a couple days to recover. Where when I was young age, I could like just keep going every day. Now, if I go shoot hoops right now with COVID, you can't, but if I go shoot hoops, you know, I'll come back like 2 days sore, you know? But my wife told me to clean out the walk-in closet, did that, took all the notes I ever got or all the things I created or little tidbits like, and I know, you know, the abbreviations, like, I don't know, you probably know some of these, like FBI, right? That's football intelligence. In my one book, in the green book, I talk about IRS, initial receiver space, AKA the window. You know what I mean? So making items or using terminologies, just like everyone uses EMO, man line of scrimmage and things like that, but using stuff to help people learn at different rates. Even though my green book talks about the VARC, I didn't like, and you know how it is when you write something, or like when someone presents at Glacier and everything, do you ever notice they give you stuff, but then there's that little carrot that you never know about until after you talk to them, after a drink or something? Because if you gave everybody everything you knew, then how would you be successful? Does that make sense?
Yes, it
So
does.
so I didn't bring out the VARC, even though the VARC was in the green book. I actually talked about it in my volume 5 coaching edition book that really sold very well for me back in, it came out in July, and it's been selling great for me, and, people are like, oh, this is so awesome. The visual, the audio, the read and write, and the kinesthetic, and teaching a play. And I'm like, I do that in classroom too, because there's every different type of learner. And I know you have 2 kids, you told me, and if you've seen the movie Up, right, with the little balloon thing, and remember Doug, the dog,
Yes.
and you probably know this. There's even guys at high school, like they see a squirrel and they're just like, squirrel, and they look over there. So, that was the whole thing, my wife being the voice of reason, because they always are. And I wanted to do something where giving back to the game and growing it. And by doing that, it opened up more doors for me than I thought that would ever be imaginable.
Yeah, I feel like I have a similar experience with the podcast, even though I'm not writing. Well, I used to write a blog, and it's still up, but I just don't write anymore. After having kids, man, having 2 kids, I just, when am I going to write? I got a full-time job, and that's one of the reasons I started the podcast, because I had some ideas, and I was thinking it would take me ages to write these down and put them up, and who's going to read them? Because most people don't read anymore. But a lot of people listen to podcasts. So that was one of the reasons I started doing it. And it's just, I think I get more out of it than the listeners do sometimes, because I feel like every episode is another mini clinic just for me, and I just listen to the coaches and talk to them, and I get little tidbits here and there. I mean, I just had, the offensive coordinator from Southern Virginia on the other night, and he told me about a drill that they run called Perfect Tens, and it's literally, it has no football involved in it, but it's all about doing the little things right, and it's about culture and little things like that I pick up. I pick 1 or 2 things from each episode. I'm learning a lot from people on here, and so that's one of the things that keeps me going. My wife's like, why do you stay up so late? Because for her, she goes to bed at like 8:30.
Yeah.
And so I stay up late and talk to people online, and she's like, why do you stay up so late? And it's like, I'm learning,
That's funny.
So you mentioned coaching in Australia. Could you kind of explain that to the listeners, like what you were doing and what you're doing now
Yeah,
with
sure. But
Australia?
before we do that, let's do this. How about this? You were just talking about how your passion and all that stuff. Let's do a book giveaway then. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
yes.
So, because like here's the thing. Like whenever someone brings me on a podcast, people are like, "Oh, you can do this, you can do that," or like I'll give you my website, and we can talk about that later, or you can post it too when you do it, or you can follow me on Twitter and things like that. But let's do this. The end, like I don't know when this will come out, right? But let's say the end of the month, November. I don't know how many listeners you have right now, but let's shoot for like 3,000, right? No matter what, let's shoot for 3,000. Okay. Maybe you're at like 1,500. Let's say you're at 1,500. I don't know where you're at. But if you get over 3,000 listeners by the end of November, no matter what, I'll give out 1 free book, right? But here's the thing with that 1 free book. Let's do this, because I give these out all the time. Let's try something new. Okay. Let's be a little like conscious. Okay. They have to take a picture with their phone. Okay. And like has your little thing up that they're actually listening or something. You know what I mean?
A
So
snapshot.
Look at Bert. You see, you're a young guy. I'm the old guy with like just whipping out. I should have did a flip phone, right? But we'll do that. And then if you get what do you want to do? 3,000 listeners? Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's do 3,000.
Okay. Yep. So no matter what, we'll give out a book if they do this and they show that, like, right. And then you could do a hashtag like back to the basics or something. That'd be cool, right? That's okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
They do that. And then, they listen to you. And then the other one is if they get 3,000 listeners, at the end of the month, we'll give out another free book. And we'll do this. Any book that's out right now, out of all 16 of them, any one you want. The only one you can't get is the Coaching Secrets or the Strength and Conditioning book free. You know what I'm saying? And anyways, the strength and conditioning book, I'm in a partnership. So if I give that out free, I got to pay the guy. So, and I love you, Cody, but not right now. We got to get those sales out. So, but like, let's do that. Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds like a great plan, Coach.
All right. Well, I'm sorry. Okay. Let's go back. Ask your question about Australia again. Go ahead.
All right. So you mentioned it a little bit earlier, talking about Australia and coaching
Yes.
there. Can you kind of explain that to the listeners, those who might not be familiar with that, and then what you're doing now?
Yeah. So in 2010, this is something probably people don't know mostly about me. I coached women's tackle football for Team USA. We won. I was a defensive coordinator with Coach Mack as a defensive assistant, and then Coach Konecki. And Coach Konecki's a really good coach in Illinois. And I was very fortunate to get on his staff. And we won 201-0 in 3 games. It's still a national record for no matter what gender, never being scored on. And we only gave up 1 red zone visit. Okay. And I think it was phenomenal, right? So still to this day, like no other national team, no matter gender, juniors, men's, women's, 201-0, boom, great, never been scored on, right? And after that, in 2013, Coach Konecki went back and won. Like he's a great coach. Like he runs a no huddle offense, and the great thing about him is his offense is so great, where it's like no huddle, it's spread, no huddle, and it's all over the place. As a defensive coordinator, just by going against that daily in a practice, sets you up to play against other teams, if that makes sense. And in 2016 then came around, and I wanted to go back, and Coach Konecki was going back. I thought Coach Konecki was going back, and he did not. So what happened was I was actually in Las Vegas, and the first time ever in Las Vegas, right? What do? I was doing a football clinic for a company, and after I got done with the football clinic, instead of like going on the town and walking the strip or whatever, I actually did an interview for 3.5 hours, you know, with Gridiron Australia, and talked to the guy. And eventually we did the interview, myself on my behalf and Jen Walters' behalf, the first NFL women's football coach, and Coach Konecki. And I said, if we would love to come on board and try to like grow the game and stuff. And it happened. And we actually went over there twice. And we had a great showing. We had over 100 ladies the first time ever having a women's national team. I thought we did a pretty good job for the first time ever playing 11-on-11 football. You know, they played it before, like in all-star games and things like that. And, you know, we could talk about it too, because right now Queensland is playing 11-on-11 women's tackle. That's the first time ever in history it's happened in a season. And it was a great experience. And then 2 years ago, I went back to another state. It was called Victoria. And because of Matthew Jenkins and Peter, I was able to come and do a coaching accreditation class where I brought my books to life. And they were so ecstatic. And they had more states come in, like Queensland, New South Wales, Perth came in. You know, they had all these coaches come in. And then the following year, I had an opportunity to talk with Kevin Wilson and Darrin Mitchell and the GA board. And right now, the GA, Gridiron Australia, is partnered with my company, Back to the Basics, Coach Stone Football Back to the Basics, and we created a coaching accreditation program. And it's pretty awesome because just recently, I just got finalized like phase 2. I had 3 phases when a country would ask. There's 3 phases to do. Phase 2 is almost done. So all the mini stuff is all done, where it's like the coursework and all that stuff. Phase 3, I don't want to go into, because you know how other places will be like, or people will be like, oh, what's phase 3? I won't go into details with that until it releases. But I do know it's pretty awesome. We're over 200 coaches have taken the courses or been in the course, and they get like the watch game film, where it's unlimited data, unlimited storage with stuff in there. And then they also get all the like tidbits of everything. Like, so in the course, there might be something in there, and I pulled it out, and then I made it something they can bring to practice, like a practice plan and things like that. And then I had coaches like, and this is awesome. When you have a country like Australia, with Gridiron Australia, wanting to grow the game and stuff, I would meet with their top coaches, and I talked to a lot of them. Where like, you know, just drop a couple names. So, you know, bear with me if I don't GA, if I don't say your name, I apologize. Like Coach Hollywood, Coach Rowe, Coach Wilson, Coach Kevin Wilson. You know, let's say those 3, for example, right? Those guys were very advocate of, we want this in the program, we want this. But if it wasn't for Kevin Wilson bringing me aboard with Darrin Mitchell, the president of GA, this would not be possible. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank everyone in Gridiron Australia for opening the doors for me to let me do that. And that's the cool thing. To take this program to the next level, and what they're doing with football, if you want to coach in Australia start soon, they have to take that coaching accreditation program. And then what I did was I partnered with Atavis Tackling, and then every coach gets Atavis for tackling, and then everything went back to the basics. Everything else is mine. So we have Atavis, and then boom, we have Coach Stone back to the basics, and it just formed into a gigantic coaching accreditation program. And it's not talking about levels, because here's the thing, Coach, you know your stuff. We talked like not even 5 minutes, and I know you know your linebacker stuff now, right? And then you talked about earlier things like this and that, but you know your stuff now, correct?
Yes.
And here's the thing: some coaches they're like Madden coaches, and I don't mean to be rude, or they have stuff out on the product, and it's like, okay, well, it doesn't work if you don't have these players, right? Where what it is I don't think coaches should be by level, because if I'm a level 1 and you're a level 4, then what happens if I'm a better coach than you? Don't level coaches out. Don't say you're a level 1 coach. Don't say you're a level 2 coach or a level A coach or level B coach. And if any country or anybody does that, I apologize. I'm not trying to be rude. But by doing it, make them coaches. You're an assistant coach. You're a positional coach. You're a coordinator coach. You're a head coach. And, that's what I do with my coaching accreditation program. You're ranked by your title. And here's the thing. You might be head coach material, and you might be an assistant coach, or you might be a positional coach. But here's the thing. By the more courses you take and the more you learn, you grow to be a better coach. Because I think you said it best. You do the podcast, and I have a thing in my books and in my sections. You never want to stop learning. And here's the thing. This all. You can take something. You could take every little piece from every little clinic, put it in your like offense or defensive pool, and then stir it up. And then guess what comes out? It's like one of those things where I think it was Zelda, where you make a potion and then it destroys, right? Because it doesn't come up all together, right? But here's the thing. You can take tidbits and use the ones you can relate to your team to make them better. Like a 2-whistle drill, right? If you're a defense and your team's not swarming to the football, do a 2-whistle drill. Your offensive line is not pushing on the field, do a cone drill where you push it down. That's all in my green book, So that's what I did. And like I said, thank you to Darrin Mitchell. Thank you to Gridiron Australia. Thank you to Kevin Wilson. Thank you to every coach I said, or everyone I didn't say. Coach Calvin, thank you so much. But I did that. And then most recently, I don't know if you heard this, I was able to coach a game via Zoom. I actually coached a football game 7-on-7 because the Sydney Lions in week 1, they had their coach that was supposed to be a head coach in another country. He's supposed to come in, and then all of a sudden, because of COVID and everything, he's like, I'm not coming. So then the ladies were held out and dry, and I knew the ladies from before when I was coaching the Outback team. And I'm like, listen, I'll give you guys a hand and help you out and help you with everything like that. And we modified things, and I was very fortunate. I want to thank Stacy, KG, and all the ladies that I was able to coach. And we won the first game. We won 26-6, and we could have won by more, but we're already up. I'm like, there's no point to do it, and when you're coaching and you see stuff open up, we were on stretch the very first play, because I watched the film from last year and I said, listen, if they align like this and we run stretch right, we're going to take it the very first play for a touchdown. And the ladies that were there, they're like, who's this guy, right? He doesn't know his stuff. And what do we do the very first play? What do you think we ran? Stretch right. And guess what we did?
Scored
a touchdown, right? It's a boom, gone. And what's cool is the lady that was running the ball, she was player of the game the first time, first-year player and things like that, and she did awesome. And, and the cool thing is it was the very first time the Sydney Lions had a women's head coach, and it's very awesome because, they're letting me help mentor that coach or, help out to the point of it's great for their program, and it helps them out, and it helps with their football intelligence. And it's great to see them succeed at a level where they're at, but that's pretty, the whole thing of the GA all caught up. I know by the end of Thanksgiving, they'll have phase 1 and phase 2 done. So all the courses will be ready to go for them to do. And then all the bonus content that's from the course will be almost in there. And then once phase 3 hits, everything will be in there. And then we just grow from there each year. And we don't change terminology yearly. We don't I'm not knocking anything, or I'm not being rude to anybody, but if you build something, you build it. You don't crack a hole in it and then change it and then change it again and then like change this for whole verbiage, or how do you do this or how you do that. Just stay on this path. And going back to the basics is what you do. You don't stay on this road and then all of a sudden, like, come year 2, you go this way, or year 3, you go this way. Just stay straight. And it works, because if you break it down and you keep, like, you know how it is. We always say, keep it simple, stupid, or keep it simple, small.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it simple, small. Okay. Or keep it simple, simple, because that's how players learn. I mean, and you know this, when you're teaching at the high school, they don't know the FBI, you see
Right.
the play wherever you're at on the field, and any coach is listening, exactly, like, they line up in this, boom, they're done. You know where it's going, right? 90% of the time, because the film breakdown. How many players can do that when they're actually on the field? And I'm going to tell you right now, you look like you could play back in the day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I guarantee you, if you knew now what you knew then, just imagine where you'd be right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes for every coach. I mean, just imagine some of the coaches that do that. I mean, that'd be awesome. So, but that's Australia, and it's beautiful country. I'll tell you this right now. It's what is this? 7 of the most 10 dangerous species live there. So I did see some items that really scared the junk out of me. So I just want you to know. And I don't care, even though I'm a Southside Chicago City boy. Those animals are scary when you see them in person. So, and they weren't in a zoo. I just want you to know that. And Coach Jenks and Coach Calvin, thank you for saving my life from the ocean, because I know the tide almost killed me myself too. So when you do go to Australia, I'm telling you this right now, when the last hour of the whole plane, they talk about the tide,
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you right now, it is stronger than you know. So that's my little gist on safety in Australia. Go to the beach, don't go deep, no matter how good of a swimmer you are. So
I think I will admire from a distance.
listen, the first time I went there, I said I admired from a distance. Second time, I felt like I was in college doing stupid stuff. And if it wasn't for Coach Jenks and Coach Calvin, I would not be speaking right now today. I'd be somewhere in the ocean. I'm not lying to you.
Man, I don't do snakes. That's my thing. I can't. I don't do snakes. My wife doesn't. She doesn't do spiders. So you got spiders that can eat snakes? Nah, we're good. I mean,
I wish I had the photo. I don't know if Jen has it or Coach Catch has it. I mean, Coach Konecki. There was a spider. I'm not lying to you. The butt must have been that big.
mm.
The butt was that big. Ready for this? That's a house spider.
Oh God.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. And listen, we were at the place the first time. We were when it was like 100-something degrees. Australians are not used to air conditioning. I'm telling you that right now. Our room, Coach Konecki and I had down to 58 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
When the coaches came in the film room, we were in shorts and a t-shirt, or maybe just like our shirt off and the t-shirt because we were sweating so much. These coaches came in with winter coats. So like if any Australian coaches listen to this, and when we're in the Outback, like Coach Stevens, Coach Bryce, they'll tell you 100%, they literally came in our room with coats on. And we asked them to sleep on the second floor because when we saw that one animal and the doors were open for breathing, we literally went to the second floor because we told the GM, and then we stuffed towels so they couldn't get in. Like, that's how we did it. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you for snakes in Australia, big snakes, you're safe. It's the little snakes, like the black snake. It's a brown snake. Don't get mad at me, Jenks, but it's a brown snake. The brown snake, those things are like gardener snakes to us. Those will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
It's the big snakes are the ones that'll save you, kind of, sort of. So I'm just giving you a heads up. I know you might not like snakes, but the littlest ones are the ones that are the most deadliest ones. That's what I was told.
Man,
it's tough.
Here in Virginia, the worst thing that I have to worry about is a copperhead. So I mean, I honestly haven't seen them in my yard. I know they're there though. I know they're there because I've seen people in the local neighborhood posted on Facebook and stuff, and I'm like, gosh, they're here. But
You're Indiana Jones.
I've seen black snakes. I've seen the garter snakes. I've seen water snakes. I don't think I've seen a water moccasin, but I haven't gotten too close to know. So
we went on vacation with my family in June. I'm sorry, June, July. I'm not lying to you. When you take 5 kids with a wife and a rental car, your marriage is strong. I just want you to know that right now. We went hiking, and our one little one had to get a diaper change. So my wife took her back. And one of the places I actually do camps at every year, that it turned into like a week-long camps, they showed us to this place, right? And it was like 80 degrees outside. And they're like, well, you're going to need a winter coat. And I'm like, it's 80 degrees outside. We're just going to the mountains. It was down to 20 degrees with snow. The next day we came back, it was 60 degrees, right? same area. We go walking when my wife went to go change a diaper. We went up to rocks, and my kids all saw a big snake. And you know, the first thing they did was they're like, "See you, Dad," and they just laughed. And I was just like, you know what? This is the one thing I tell you, kids: if you're with somebody and it's not your family, just make sure you're not the slowest one. I said.
I get that. I know we're on kind of a tangent here, but oh well. My wife and I, we were, oh gosh, this was either we were still engaged and still in college before we got married. I can't remember exactly when. We went and visited her brother who lived in, at the time he was in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I remember the name? It's on the coast of South Carolina.
Okay.
And in what they call it the Low Country. And, there's gators, there's all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
We were on a walk on the coast, and I didn't see it until it was right next to my foot. There was the tiniest of little snakes, and the only reason I saw it was because it moved. And when it moved, I jumped about 3 feet in the air.
Hey, I bet you your vertical jump was NFL style right there.
And my wife was laughing her butt off at me.
Oh,
and she was like, it was a tiny little thing. And I was like, I don't care.
You know what? If you want to do something, do what I did one time. Ready? There's a reason why we don't have Nerf guns in this house anymore, and toy animals, like those plastic ones. You put a big spider under her blanket, where you guys sleep. She opens that up. There, you want to see someone jump. I did that one time, and I'm telling you, I hopefully my wife never listens to this, but she got super mad at me because she played a joke on me one time. And then the other reason is, I don't know if you have Nerf guns with your kids, but we don't have Nerf guns in this house anymore because we used to do Nerf gun fights on Christmas. And then we it's like we do Call of Duty because back in the day it was Call of Duty, not Fortnite, right? Mm-hmm. And my wife made a comment on a social media post was, when you married a gamer, when you see COD, it said, COD for Culvers, yeah. You married a gamer when you say COD is Call of Duty, right? So we're shooting at each other, and then she hit under the tree, and I shot her, went through the tree and hit her right in the eye. Luckily, we didn't have to take her to the nurse, but we almost did, a doctor. But ever since then, we've stopped playing jokes at each other and things like that. So you got to do the spider thing. Spider thing would be hilarious.
Oh God, if I did the spider thing, she might consider divorcing me.
Hey, she can't. You got 2 kids. You're good.
Exactly.
2 kids is harder than 1.
Because our oldest, he's 3, and he's 3.5, and growing, and he's super smart, but he's also a freaking little tornado. And I don't know. No, we don't have Nerf guns in the house because we know that someone would be shot.
Yes.
We have a multi-generational household. We live with my wife's parents.
Okay.
All in the same house. And my father-in-law, he's up there in age. I don't think he could survive a sneak attack by my 3-year-old. So we probably won't be buying those anytime soon. And if we do, they'll probably have to stay outside.
And you have brothers and sisters, you told me, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I have a brother, and I don't mean to bring this on your podcast, but I have a brother, but he has the greatest. He played football, right? He played quarterback like I did, but he started later. He didn't start till like freshman year to play quarterback. And it's funny because he always still tries to beat me up, even though I'm a lot taller than him. He's a lot older than me, 6 years older. This last Christmas, he decided to buy all the kids fart ninjas. So we had 5 fart ninjas. I don't know if you know what those are. They're like little characters. And you put them on, they're like the size of a cell phone, right? And they got all different colors, and he bought each one of them different color, right? Of course, they fight over them because they wanted the certain color. So, but you turn them on, and I'm not lying to you, for 1 whole month, and then when COVID hit again, for 1 whole month, if you walked in the room and you passed one, it would go, and it would do that. It was really funny. But then when COVID hit, and we were all quarantined with 5 kids, if it wasn't for fart ninjas for my brother and the Nintendo Switch, we probably would not be around right now. My wife would definitely divorce me, just so you know. So you might want to get the fart ninjas for your house. That might be a lot safer than the other thing.
Yeah, I could. My wife, God bless her. She's very patient with us. Because I may or may not rile up my 3-year-old every once in a while.
That's why we don't do bedtime, I bet. Just so you know,
Oh,
that's why I don't do bedtime.
exact. Well, I have to help with bedtime because we have two now, so I can't get out of that one. Um,
Oh,
and that's why I do my podcast late at night, because otherwise
there's
I
your
would be doing
excuse.
them during the day if I didn't have to help out with bedtime. Um,
That's funny.
I kind of wanted to go back with Australia
Sure.
real quick. Now, is American style football, is that becoming more popular? Because all I ever see coming out of Australia is footy, so or rugby. Um, it is like the American football, is that becoming more popular?
Yeah, it's becoming huge. Like especially like after 2016 when we were down there, it's. I mean, it was already growing and it was already huge. It was like if you're not down there, you don't know that stuff, right? Or if it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
make headlines, and it's getting ginormous. You know, the one thing that I was introduced to was Australian football. It's the one with the 4 goals.
Mm-hmm.
Going to those games, it's the greatest thing next to the butter. Like I think it's better than actual tackle football because you get to, I mean, you're tackling without pads even. Like it's like rugby, but you get to punt it, catch it, everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the game is growing so much. And like I said before, like and I say like this, I say this again. If I don't say the coaches' names, I'm not trying to be rude or you know, me with being ahead so many times. You know, like the Kevin Wilsons, the Craig Wilsons, the Coach Rose. I mean, those are the 3 national team coaches for the next national teams. You know, Coach Wilson with the women's, Coach Rowe with the juniors, and then Coach Craig Wilson with the men's team. I mean, the game's growing so significantly. It's amazing, you know. And the only thing like if we could do is trying to get them more equipment in would be great. So like if the NFL could donate equipment or something like that, I think that'd be huge. And when they had those games, if you remember before COVID, they brought over a couple college games over there, and it's just I mean like you should see it. It's just the passion for it and the love, and it is like what we think about of even though rugby is still probably the number one sport over there, I would say, or AFL. Those are the 2 top sports, or you know, footy and stuff. But it's growing at a huge rate. And having a organization like Gridiron Australia, where all the states are in and they're all doing it the correct way and everything like that. I mean, it's just growing the game exponentially. Like if you said, I mean, I don't have the numbers and they would have them, but if you go from 20 years ago to today, their numbers have like, I mean, they're astronomical, a ton. You know, everyone's playing it at every state they have because they have, I believe, 7 states there.
Okay. The reason I ask is because a couple years ago, our family, this was before we had kids, we went to Austria,
Mm-hmm.
Vienna, Austria, for like kind of a 10-day vacation kind of deal. And they were in the middle of their professional season, the European League.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember exactly what it was called, but the fact that they have professional American football over there, to me, it means, well, they have to have like younger kids playing it somewhere. And I found it, it's all about, at least over there. I'm not sure what other countries are like. I know it's all, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not like high school teams; they're club teams.
Club
That's what
teams,
that.
yes,
Yeah,
it's
they're
huge,
all
yes.
club teams. So I'm assuming Australia is the same, all club
Yes.
teams right now.
Yeah, so they don't have like their schools, their universities are like their high schools, you would say it. That's
Hmm.
like the terminology. Like I've learned a lot of things. Like let's say that's when I type now, when I spell offense and defense, there's a C instead of an S. That's how many times I've spelled offense and defense for their coaching accreditation program or when I send emails to those ladies or guys or whoever. Um, but they have clubs, states, and organizations, right? They have clubs that are like, I mean, I don't want to say they're semi-pro teams, and I'm not knocking semi-pro teams or not, but they're like leagues like that, or like you would say like indoor leagues where people, and then they just recruit from different like, you know, they don't say YMCA's or park districts and things like that. They have it's a different word for it, so I don't want to say this or that, and they don't have any high school teams.
Hmm.
It's like if you have like, let's say you have like New South Wales, for example, right? They have like the Raiders, the Lions. I believe they have UTS. They have the Giants. They have the Rebels. They have like 5 or 6 different teams, or maybe even more than that, right? But and then they would have a juniors, a women's, and then a men's team, and then some might have a youth program, right? Where the juniors are like the middle school, the high school type of kids, And then once they hit 18, they'll be the women's and then the men's team. And they can go all the way up. And they do have this like huge game. And I know I was talking to a coach about it. And I don't want to say the name, but it's in July or it's in like June. It's where all the old players come back and play. It's really awesome. Like they'll have guys out there that are 60 years old and like they can move better than we can. I'm not lying to you because I've seen video of that. And I wish I knew the game. I know any Australian coach would know it that plays tackle gridiron football. It's called gridiron football out there. But yeah, it's pretty awesome how they do it over there. And a lot of other states, a lot of other countries like that, like United Kingdom, Austria, they're the same way. And they don't have like at the high school, they just have clubs or universities that are there, like a branch off of that university, most likely.
So how would a kid sign up to play? Are they put through based on where they live? Like, is that what determines what team they play for, or do they kind of get to choose?
Yeah. I don't want to say that or this because I don't know that stuff. All I know is this: if there's a player in a state, most likely they'll play in that state. So like Perth is the furthest west, right? And then Victoria and New South Wales and all those other ones are on the other side, and Southern Australia and all that. But like there's nothing in the center of Australia. So I mean, like there are some people that live there, but it's super hard. I would never want to drive through there if there was roads in there, but if a kid lives in Perth on this side, they most likely won't come all the way over to this side to play. They'll play on the Perth side, and then they'll find a team and they'll find a club to play for. And then they could play for they have like a thing called the Pro Bowl. I call it a Pro Bowl. It's like a state level where the states will play against each other. So that's why I say it's like a Pro Bowl where the best in the state, they play against each other, and then they play for this big trophy and stuff at one location. And it happens like every 2 years or things like that. And they have it in I believe they have 3 divisions: a juniors, a men's, and a women's team that do that. And that's all 11 on 11. I think they played 9s one time or 7s, but usually that's 11 on 11. I know for now it's 11 on 11 for the last 2 years because the game has grown so much,
So I got a couple other topics that we can talk
Sure,
about. I don't want to take up all night, Coach, but
no, you're fine.
So recently, especially during COVID, I've been doing like a deep dive into leadership and culture because, on my side at least, I feel like that was something that I was lacking as a coach, and so I wanted to like go into it more and learn. I'm a lifetime learner, I never stop learning.
Great.
So I'm trying to always fix the gaps that I have in my my expertise. So I'm always interested in like everyone's coaching style and like leadership style because for me, when I was interviewed for the position that I'm at now, the coach asked, "Well, what's your leadership style? What kind of leader are you?" And I told him, "Look, I'm not the coach that you're going to look for on Friday night to give the speech to make everybody all hyped up and ready to go. That's not the kind of coach that I am. I'm not the yeller. I'm not the screamer. I'm the guy who's on the sideline, my arm around the kid's shoulder saying, "Hey, what's going on? What are you seeing?" I'm the relationship type coach. And, I'm a little more X's and O's and not so much rah, rah. So what would be your kind of leadership style? Do you know what your leadership style is?
Yeah,
I've had
yeah, I actually do. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like this, right? When I'm coaching youth football, it's about the kids and growing. It's about everything. I mean, like, it's not about winning and losing at all. It's about having fun because this right now. When the game has got to a point, even with COVID, before even COVID, I remember the days where kids would run marathons just for getting something wrong. And here's the thing, the coaches would come back and ask them the same question, and then they would get it wrong. And if you're like that and you're struggling with that, this is why my books come in a great example, right? This is why I wrote the books, to help with that. The other thing, then you go to the higher levels, the high school levels and things like that. If you're not successful, I don't care what anybody says. If you're not good at what you do, if you're not good at defense like you are, or linebackers, you're not going to keep your position. They're going to change your position, or you're going to become this guy or that guy or this guy, right? So what I can say with my coaching style is this: I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be straightforward with you. If a kid says, "Coach, how's my D1 run?" and it's not a D1 run, I'm going to be honest with them. Also I'm going to do as much as I can. And as a GSD coach, get stuff done.
Mhm.
If you say I can't do it and they're like, well, we can't afford this or not, then I'm going to make something to do it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not asking for anything in return. I don't need money. You're not paying me to give out 2 free books. We just, you talking about your podcast. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'll give out, hey, great. Let's do it. You know? But I think it's amazing where last time I went in an interview, it was like this, because I was done coaching. I was coaching my son's flag football team. He was 5. Okay. And right now he's 11. And I'm there and I'm coaching and I'm having fun. And the high school coach at the time, Coach Catch, is like, to my wife, he's like, why doesn't your husband coach high school football? And he's like, well, he did, and he just left. He's done. He's like retired. He's just doing clinics for a company, and that's it. Because he says, if I'm going to teach this type of way, I don't want to be that person where I'm teaching something and then I'm not at a school and teaching that program, right? Because how would you like that if you're like, hey, do this certification or do this thing, and then I go present it at your school, but then when I'm at my school, I do something totally different, right? That's not right. At the end of the day, that's not right at all.
Right.
So that's why I left coaching, because I wasn't going to be able to teach that type of at my program. So my wife's like, talk to him, blah, blah. So I literally talked to him, and I said this on another podcast. I was on my way to the Minnesota Vikings facility, or on the way home. I was on my way there, and I spoke to him on the way back. And we talked about, and I said, you got to be this, you got to do this. And he's like, well, I never looked into that. And so we sat down, and then eventually I wanted to coach defense, and he put me on the quarterbacks. And he's like, well, you played quarterback, didn't you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not a big offensive fan. He's like, well, don't you played it, And I'm like, aren't you really good at it? And the kids are really good. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I see your son do it. And I mean, like, he had to learn from somebody. And I'm like, well, thanks. And this and that. So I became the quarterbacks coach, like you introduced me earlier. And I said, listen, I like doing it this way. And I don't know if you're like this at practice, but if I'm standing there talking to you and we're just buddies and we're shooting the crap, there's no reason to be there. Does that make sense? If the kids are, if we have 2 guys tackling and stuff, and there's 14 people standing around, it's pointless. I don't like that at all. I want practice to everyone participating. When we have scout team, if I'm running a team, I want everyone in there. I want, like, if I have scout players, I'll take this 11 here and this 11 then next play, and then I have fresh bodies every time. Because there's some kids that just want to sit out and scout. Or you're doing field goal. Like I help with the field goal team too. You don't have to put that on my thing or my resume or whatever, but I help out with the field goal team. I do a thing when we do scout field goal. Hey, if you block it, I'll buy you a double cheeseburger. Because here's the thing. I would always bring a double cheeseburger to practice. And then one guy's like, oh, I want a double cheeseburger. I'm like, great, block a kick. And then when I took over the field goal unit, I would do block a kick, get a cheeseburger during Wednesday's film. And I'd say double cheeseburger. Don't ask me why. I think those were cheaper at the time. But the players loved it. And I swear to goodness, I had to push guys away from doing it. So then we had to have a rotation of who wants to not block it, but go after the kick. And just by say this, if you're honest, everyone has different styles. And here's the thing, you cannot have a coaching staff, that they're all the same people. Because if you have all the same people, then you're asking to not succeed. And I wrote an article a long time ago on Huddle, creating a coaching staff. You need to have those coaches. And I guarantee you have those. You have a local coach that everyone knows. You have a GSD coach that gets stuff done, but we don't say stuff, and they get it done. Like, hey, we want this for this. Great. It's going to happen. We need this adjustment at halftime. Well, it's going to happen. You know what I mean? And it happens. You need a technology guy, right? And you were talking about it earlier. You were a technology guy back in the day. So you're a technology guy. Okay. You got to have someone that does the analytics, even though that might be the technology guy and the GSD guy, but you need to have someone like that. You need that veteran Hall of Fame coach that is been on 40 different staffs. And I don't know if you have one on your staff, but it's that coach where if the head coach or someone needs something, they're right there, and then you just have to have those great positional coaches. You got to have those young coaches that will do anything. Oh, Coach Stone, you need me up in the box with you and chart your whole plays? I'll do that. You know what I mean? You need to have all those different types of coaches. And there's a lot more. You need to have a great strength coach too. I'll just throw that one in there. But there's about 10 coaches you need to have in a great coaching staff. So, I think what leadership is, be honest with the kids. That's my whole big thing. and I hate to say it, I'm brutally honest, so I apologize to the kids beforehand, and I do, even anyone I've ever coached with, before I go on their staff, I'm going to be like, hey, this is how I am. And, but I'm going to hug them too, but I'm not going to give you false hopes. If we're playing a team that's great and we're okay, I'm not going to make it like Rocky 3 with Mickey. I'm going to tell them, like, listen, this is going to be Clubber Lang coming. I don't want to be Apollo Creed going against Ivan Drago, because you might have been on a staff. You might have been on a team like that. You guys were Apollo, where you're like the top team, 9-0. You play a 4-5 or a 5-4 playoff team, and they whoop the junk out of you. And that's what I do, and that's what I do when I'm on a coaching staff. And I appreciate everyone that's ever had me on a coaching staff, from Coach Brand, Coach Wallace, there's so many, Coach Catch, Coach Carpenter, all you guys that ever let me on a staff. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it, because you had to put up with all my junk. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's pretty much the whole thing in a nutshell with leadership and stuff. I hope that answered your question.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I can kind of see what you were talking about, building the coaching staff, because while you were mentioning that, I was thinking about in my head, okay, yeah, that's that coach on our staff. Yep, okay, we got that person. Yeah, and so I definitely see that. Now, the big buzzword in coaching right now is culture. It's everywhere. Are there things like, do you have what's the word I'm looking for? It's the core values, because everybody talks about you got to have your core values.
Yeah.
Do you have a set of core values that you teach or that you live by for culture purposes? And then are there anything that you do within your program that you work to build culture, like any like drills, or do you teach culture, that kind of thing?
Like you said, every coach does a certain thing, right? When the players are with me, no matter if they're offense, defense, or whatever, right? Like, I'll even be after a game when we're allowed to speak to the team. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't, even after a win or a loss, whatever. The biggest thing is this: win or lose, you got 24 hours or till midnight to be happy or sad. And then you got to throw it away. Who cares? 2, when I was a head coach before, I had the 4 things: dedication, determination, discipline, and defense. If you do those 4 things, we'll be fine. And then, like, I remember one of my players goes, well, coach, what about offense? And I said, I'm going to take a quote from Jen Walter, the first ever female football coach. She's on a Madden game KO. And the only reason my kids play Madden anymore, you know what I mean? They play Superstar KO, and I play. That's the only time I play the games now, is if you can't score, you can't win, and that's a big thing. And I'm not saying, like, put that in your defensive philosophy, like, scoreless games, or like, this or that. Because what happens if a team scores on you? Then your philosophy goes out the window, or your stuff goes out the window. Just limit points, limit turnovers, win the turnover battle. Like, use something like that. When I'm with the guys, they understand when we practice, we're actually playing a game. So when we run a rep, everything is visual and everything is going to come out. No matter if I'm using cones to show coverages, or players like inserting in the gaps and you're reading holes or things like that with running backs or quarterbacks, or just reading on the dime, like, hey, listen, he moves, you throw it. He moves, you throw it. Like things like that. As a quarterback's coach and as a quarterback, you don't look at your receivers unless the pocket breaks down. You throw where they're going to be, and that's what you need to know. And by running like a cone drill, or using garbage cans, or, 2-whistle drill, things like that, or doing something where the kids love, it makes them work. For example, here's the thing. And if you want to try this, coach, with your team when you guys go back. Instead of conditioning, you can get my first book or whatever, get my other books, and play capture the cone, or play like capture the flag game, and let 2 guys, an offensive and defensive captain, go against each other and, like, say, if our team loses, we get this, we get this. If you do that and you say you have 20 minutes to play it, and you have to move around when you do it, or you have to, like, if you're on this side, the first game, then you got to go on this side. And, like, when, if you cross the line, if you get tagged, you go to prison, right? If you do something like that, that will be more movement they do than you making them run ladders or sprints or things like that. Because, like, I say to the offensive line or defense line when I'm in the scout, I'm like, listen, guys, I don't want you to run 30 yards at the ball. At the defensive line, listen, if the ball gets past you and you can make the get it right and scout. But if we already caught the ball and the guy's already gone, don't even bother chasing them. I know the defense coordinator is going to get mad at me, but if you're running longer than you should be, then you're doing something wrong as an offense or defense. Am I right or wrong by saying that? So just the upfront honesty with them and saying, hey, listen, when you're with me, we're almost kind of conditioning all the time. And how I say to them is this, and I don't know if you do this, when I have my position group with me, I tell them, bring your water with. Because I don't want you to run all the way to get water there. Because when we were younger, the offensive linemen were here. The water was way over here on this side. Remember those days? I guarantee you every offensive coach remembers this when you were little. Offensive line here, water way over here 100 yards down the field. Where I just tell them, bring your water with you. Once we get, like, if I'm preaching or like, I don't say preaching, when I'm talking, take a sip of water, things like that. But like, and I don't need gospel talking, I tell them. If I'm doing something with formations with all the levels, like where Coach Catch like says, I need you to take all these guys and teach them things. So I have like these stations where I have varsity here, JV here, sophomores here, and freshmen here. And I say, line up in this formation. And then I say, run this, and I boom, like that. Because I don't use a whistle at all. And here's one thing that I'm going to teach you, Coach, and you're probably going to love it. Are you ready? I don't know if you ever learned this before. What does a whistle mean?
Usually it means stop or go.
Then why do coaches use it to start something? Don't do that anymore. If you want to learn something, here's the thing. And I don't care what anybody says. Every time in practice, you're always going on one. And a lot of teams always go on one. Guess what? When you're doing your functional warm-ups, your dynamic warm-ups or whatever, or your drills or whatever, even when I do my drills, I'll either clap or I'll say ready, set, go, or I'll do our cadence, or I have them do their cadence, or we have 3 quarterbacks going when we're doing routes versus air. When I do routes versus air, we have 4 routes going and 4 quarterbacks going because no one's sitting around that. Now, so be like, oh, well, you have people behind. Yeah, but you don't understand. It's 4 footballs thrown at one time, and then there's another 4 footballs being thrown. And then the group that's coming back, they're snapping to them after they caught it. And when they catch the ball, they're getting upfield. How many times have you seen teams, they catch the ball, they pluck it, tuck it, turn around, or they run back to the thing? You know, you get upfield like you score a touchdown. So I tell them, if they catch it, they score a touchdown. And they get used to that mindset. So with my culture, it's those 4 things. Because if you're using those mindset things, and I don't teach defense anymore because I'm only there for offensive time, I'm just being honest. Where if you use those 3 other things and you can like help the defense out, it just helps your culture in your program. And we both know this, and everyone that's listening to this knows this. When you're winning, nothing can be wrong. When you're, no matter what, even if a little Billy never plays a down, if you're 9-0, your problems are minute. When you start losing, everything goes wrong. You start thinking yourself, you can't coach anymore. You think you're done with coaching. You come home, you're bringing it to your wife or your significant other, and I know you probably have these stories, or the wife or someone's in the stands, and they're complaining about this or that. You know what I mean? I love it. I love it to death. My wife comes to everything I've done for coaching. She's PTO president at the elementary school I teach at, and God rest her soul, she had a Halloween dance, the first one I ever missed since 2009 last year, because we had a game that day on the Friday right before the playoffs was announced on Saturday. She literally got there, did everything. She even let me do my routine where I like to go I don't know if you have a routine. I take a nap before every game. I like to be calm and relaxed. I get to go get food, and then I just get to the game. I sit up in the box myself, calm and relax, and then all of a sudden I have my little piece of paper that I use to give suggestions or call the plays that I think that would work. And then just by watching the sophomore game, taking notes. But she shows up to the game even after the fact. She shows up at third quarter, and I love it too because I see her. I always come down and come up and I give her a kiss like a lot of coaches do. And I kid you not when I say this. When she showed up, she made it a purpose to make sure she knew she was there. And I think that's a good thing. And coach, you know this, and a lot of coaches will, if you don't have a football wife as a culture, that's a true culture if you want to know. Because they do everything for you. And if it wasn't for my wife, I guarantee you the books wouldn't have happened. The podcasts I do wouldn't have happened. The website, the reason I have Coach Stone Football Back to the Basics is because when I got let go from an organization, and all these organization teams said, we want you to come and do something for us. My wife's like, you should start your own company. So then in 2007, that just blew up. And now I'm doing a whole country for a coaching accreditation program. Who would have knew, right? And then I don't know, but I'm just telling you now, come January, the youth certification is going to come out. So if there's a youth program listening to this, and you're tired of other ones or whatever you're doing, you can go to my website, coachstonefootball.com, and go to contact and see when it's coming out, because I guarantee you there is already scheduled places where I'm going to be talking to programs about building one for them personally. And that's what I do with my company.
Hey, you're not joking when you're talking about the wives and the coaching wives. Listen, I would not be a coach today if it wasn't for my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Straight out of college, I was still looking for a job. I was still interviewing for teaching jobs. And she comes into the room one day. I remember it distinctly because I was taking a break. I was playing NCAA 14.
Greatest game of all time. I just want everybody to talk about that.
I still have my PS4 or my old PS3, excuse me, my old PS3 just to play that game.
And I think that's the one that you can create plays too, isn't it? Is that the 14?
You can't create plays, but you can make a playbook. They have
there you go. Yeah, you can make a playbook. Yes,
that you can do playbooks.
Sorry, yeah, that's right.
I wish I could create plays because the stuff they have on there sometimes is kind of glitchy, but I remember it. I was playing video game and she walks into the room and slaps a newspaper in my lap and points at it. And there's an ad for a local high school had an opening for an assistant coach. And she said, call him right now. And I did. I got an interview, got the job. The rest is history. If it wasn't for her, the path never would have started. If it wasn't for her agreeing to it, I never would have started a podcast either.
Hey, listen, and that's the reason why you're talking to me now and not helping with bedtime.
Oh,
and
yeah.
If you ever got my green book, or if you guys coaches buy my green book, the first section in my book is a credit to my wife. And I wrote a blog for it and everything called Odella the Football Wife. It's on my website, or you get it in my book. And trust me, the qualities I have in there, like you said, everything you're saying and much more.
Mm-hmm.
Being the cheerleader, being the listener, giving you the opportunity to coach, even though you had no idea it was open, and she found it for you, because they know more than we want to say they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly want to see down the road. I know we have NFL football coaches and things like that. I'm just waiting for the day, and I'm hoping to still be alive, because I have 4 daughters and 1 son. Seeing an actual head coach in the NFL as a woman, that would be great.
Yeah, that would be.
I know a lot of coaches won't like that, but
So a couple other things that I wanted to talk about. One that I've been trying to put this more into the podcast because
Sure.
I'm weird and I'm just interested in this kind of thing. What are some of your other non-football interests? Things that you do outside of football. For me, I read. I like to read a lot of fantasy novels and stuff like that. I obviously football wise, I do research, but I might be on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I might be watching things like The Mandalorian, which is finally coming out.
This is the way.
Yes, this is the way. I've forced my wife to watch the first 2 episodes that are out, and she does not like spiders, so she did not like the second episode. So sorry, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, which I'm sure everybody's seen it by now.
I hope so.
So what are some things that you do outside of football what are your other interests? What are some things that you're interested in?
Okay, so before my dad died, I loved the golf. Okay. And I had a handicap of 8 when he was still alive. When he passed away, I stopped golfing. I'm like one cold turkey. The biggest thing I love is movies, watching movies, watching who did it movies. I don't know if you remember the books, and this would be like where I'm calling out your age here. There used to be books when I was little called Choose Your Own Adventure. I don't know if you remember those, where you would read a book and then you get to pick which way do you want to go with the page, right? Mm-hmm. And there was one time I was teaching and I found a place that had them, and they had the whole series, like all 100 books. It was the white cover ones, if you guys remember the white cover. They're a little bit bigger than the phone, right? They were like this big, and those are things I love to do. And if I ever see those, I would pick those up in a store or whatever. The other thing I love is, besides the movies and TV shows, and my wife and I, we watch shows late because we have to because of our kids. Uh, I really really love, like, and I live by this, like we talked about with the culture. I love Star Treks. So
Hmm.
Kobayashi Maru, I always talk about it in my books or blogs or whatever. I've never said that on a podcast, but are you a Trekkie fan or no?
Not so much. I like
You're a Star
Star.
Wars, right? Yeah. So
Well,
you're
I
like one
like
or the
Star
other, both.
Wars. I like Star Wars. I'm not a nerd, so I'm not like deep in the lore. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I
You're not like my
definitely
son where you know everything about like rebels and all that junk, right?
exactly. But
Yeah.
my thing is Lord of the Rings. That's
Okay.
my I'm
Yes.
deep into the lore with Lord of the Rings. And my
Gotcha.
wife is Harry Potter, so I've done the Harry Potter stuff. So Lord of the Rings is what I'm into. Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Um, I've read the books that have come out. I'm still waiting for the other ones to come out because they've got to be better than the last few seasons. Um, I don't
So,
know. Are you into Game of Thrones?
my wife and I watched it, right?
Mhm.
I would say this, when a woman loves you when she watches Doctor Who with you, okay? Because I am a huge Doctor Who fan. And here's a little tidbit about me. When I go on my trips, I, you know, it's when I go overseas, there's certain things I would like to do, right? Like,
Mhm.
and when I went over to the United Kingdom to present, uh, kind of what they do now with their coaching accreditation, because I was the one that came over and helped with their USA football, starting them with the whole national certification thing there. And it was for Mike Haynes, myself, and John Wise. It's over in the United Kingdom. It wouldn't be possible. But the one thing I asked for in return is this. I wasn't really asking for money or nothing. I said, I want to get a picture with a Doctor Who box. And then I wanted to, if possible, like if they ever have a convention, I like to go. And what's cool is I didn't realize this. One, we got done with a camp, and then we drive over somewhere, and I'm like, where are we going? We're not going back to the hotel. He literally stopped by a place where it had the police box. If you
Mhm.
know Doctor Who, the TARDIS, right?
Yep.
It's bigger on the inside, right? So we took a picture there, and then one day we're going right before our coin toss. We're honoring the coaches that went with me as a coin toss, and I'm going to flip the coin before the game starts. And I got the coin still. I should go get it, but it's too late now because it's in the other room. But he took me to the Doctor Who convention, and it was
Mhm.
like 4 floors. And talk about a little boy in a candy factory. And that's something my dad was a true Marine. Everyone, I'm telling you this right now. And Marines don't die, so he's not dead. Marines don't die. He's just resting right now, up in heaven or wherever he's at. I hate to say that, but what happened was he would let us stay up on Sundays to watch Doctor Who. And I grew up on all of them. You know what I mean? Patrick, John Pierre, Tom Baker, the other Baker, and Sylvester, and all those, right? And then when it came back in the 2000s, I was ecstatic. I wasn't happy when the movie came out and my dad was still alive. But like they had a TV movie on Fox, they were going to revive the series with Eric Roberts as the master. And I don't know if you know the stuff, but it's like you with your Game of Thrones and stuff, where my wife and I, we watch that too sometimes. Um, but at the end of the day, like something like that is an interest with the history. Like if you're a history person like I am, that
Mhm.
love history, it's phenomenal. Just like, I don't know if you know the whole COVID thing going on, right? We
Mhm.
have to wear a mask. In 1918, because of Spanish flu, we all had to wear masks. So I don't know if people know this, or maybe people are like, oh yeah, I already knew this. But think about that. And then it took 3 years to get out of that. Now, here's what I don't understand. Like, our technology is so much better. It's probably going to be sooner, but they all wore masks and they contained it. Where I'm not getting political or anything, but it's wear the mask, get this done. And it's amazing how history repeats itself every once in a blue moon. So, I mean, that's my interest, like doing that stuff. I do podcasts. I did like writing blogs and things like that as a side thing. But that's all football stuff. But like watching movies, TV series, the whodunits, the Sherlock. I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes fan too. I don't know if you like Sherlock Holmes, but I love Sherlock Holmes. I love the Star Treks, Star Wars, and then now they got the games, the Thrones, that's already done, but they have all that stuff. And there's going to be more stuff coming out because they're going to come out with a prequel Game of Thrones. They have to,
Yeah.
because they made so much. Everyone makes so much money. It's ridiculous, And then when the series comes, like they keep it around. And there's other shows I watch, and
Mhm.
but yeah, it's pretty awesome. I
Talking
love
talking
that.
about who done it shows. All right. my
Go ahead.
wife and her mother are huge British mystery shows, like
Yes.
murder mystery show fans, and they got me
Yes.
into it. So we're talking like I'm sure you've heard of them, Miss Marple,
Yep.
Poirot. They made me watch Poirot, Midsummer Murders,
That's
and
huge
then
over there. Yeah.
what are the other ones? The Australian one is we were just watching it this morning.
I don't know that one.
Um, Phryne
Columbo.
Fisher.
Eddie Fisher, is that?
Phryne Fisher. I don't know if you've ever heard of those.
Not sure.
Miss Fisher Mysteries, and then
Miss Fisher Mysteries, yes.
yep, and then there's the Canadian one, Murdoch Mysteries.
Murdoch Mysteries is like season 14, I think they're on now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more.
I think we've got up to season 12 on DVD. I mean, like they're like really into it, and at first I fought it. I was like, no, I'm not watching British shows in America. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like, why are you making me watch this? And then eventually over time they wore me down. I was like, okay, I'll watch it with you. I'll watch a couple episodes, and then I got into it, and it's real weird. I'm still not
I,
into Miss Marple though. I find Miss Marple a little boring,
she's newer though, I thought. Isn't she like really new?
but
Or is that the other one that just came out?
the other one's more new.
Oh, okay.
Because the Poirot and the Marple series, I can't. There are some old Poirot movies that
Yes.
they made me watch, and then there's the newer show with I think the actor's name is David Suchet.
Okay.
I think those are more recent, but I don't think they make those anymore.
I love I have every Columbo on DVD.
Yes, she watches Columbos on the
I have
weekends.
every Columbo on DVD, and I'm always like that one more thing. I always want to do that when I'm coaching football, but I've only done it like once in my whole coaching career. My mom would always make me watch Murder, She Wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Remember with Jessica, and I do watch like the British ones like that, and then there's a lot of good stuff. I mean, there's a lot of good shows. I mean, I just love the mystery because it's like coaching an offense, right? You're trying to guess who the murderer is. You're trying to guess what front they're doing on a certain play, and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you're up in the box, but I'm up in the box, and I love it. And I think that's why I will never become a head coach, because I think if I'm a head coach, I'd probably be the only head coach up in the box, because I don't care. I'd stay up in the box and do it, but you have to be out in the field though. As a head coach, if you probably did a poll, coach, you should do a poll on your podcast and see how many head coaches are up in a box during a game. I guarantee it's probably 1%, if that.
We'll call those the Joe Paternos.
That's only when he was hurt, remember?
Oh,
when he was hurt.
That's like the only memory I have of him though, is when he was up in the box. I mean, because I'm younger, so
Yeah.
Oh well. All right, Coach. Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming on tonight, and I really appreciate you offering up those books for the giveaway.
Don't worry about it.
All right. Well, this has been the Armchair Coaching Podcast, and this is Coach Sheffer signing out.